Yun Chujio had also mixed Xiaohei in. There were a lot of monsters anyway, so no one would pay too much attention to it. Yun Chujio rolled her eyes and said to the crowd, "To prevent the monsters from noticing something wrong, you guys are now crying for help or something. The more miserable you are, the better." The crowd couldn't care less about being embarrassed anymore. According to Yun Chujio, they were crying and howling. In any case, they were indeed afraid, so they were quite sincere. With more than 400 people howling at the same time, the sound was quite loud, and the monsters outside could be heard. When the monsters heard the movement inside the cave, they started to use their limbs and bodies to beat the stone wall, trying to force the group out as soon as possible. When Yun Chujio asked the monsters to dig the cave, they shouldn't go directly to the back of the mountain. Instead, they should go out diagonally. This way, the group could stay away from the monsters, so that they wouldn't be discovered immediately. The stones above their heads were falling more and more heavily. Yun Chujio simply told everyone to gather together and take turns to form a spiritual energy barrier. This way, they could still hold on for a while. 2 hours later, the tunnel was opened. The reason why they were so fast could only mean that their luck had finally come to an end. When they were halfway through digging, Xiaohei discovered a cave nearby. Hence, the demonic beasts decided to set the exit in the cave. This saved more than half of their time. Everyone climbed into the tunnel one by one and entered the cave. Yun Chujio carefully walked out of the cave. If she listened carefully, she could vaguely hear the sound of monsters hitting rocks from afar. It was estimated that this place was about 10 miles away from the original cave. It was just that one was on the south side of the mountain, and the other was on the north side of the mountain. The monsters would soon realize that everyone had disappeared. When the time came, they would definitely search everywhere. They had to move quickly. Yun Chujio looked into the distance. This was still a valley with some sparse trees. There was a large patch of bushes not far from the cave. There was no large forest. To say the least, even if there was a forest, it would not be able to block the attacks of the 8 monsters. Yun Chujio was really worried. There were still 10 days left until the end of the trial. How could she survive these 10 days? She did not know where the other students of the 2 academies had gone. Could it be that they were the only ones who had been teleported here? If they could gather everyone, it would not be so difficult to deal with these monsters. Yun Chujio suddenly slapped her thigh. She was really stupid. Comparing the number of people and the number of monsters, it could be considered the opposite. If they did not have enough people, then they could think of a way to divide the monsters and attack them. It was not a problem for them to deal with one monster with 400 people. Now, the key was how to lure the monsters into the ambush one by one. Yun Chujio rolled her eyes and used her divine sense to give a few instructions to the queen bee. Then, a large group of Tianluo poisonous bees flew towards the place where the monsters were. Among the 8 monsters, 6 were slapping the mountain. The remaining 2 were guarding the entrance of the cave to prevent Yun Chujio and the others from escaping. The 6 monsters were slapping the mountain with all their might when they saw a large group of sky luo wasps flying towards them from all directions. Although they had thick skin and were not afraid of the sky luo wasps, their eyes could not withstand it. They kept using their limbs to drive away the sky luo wasps. However, these sky luo wasps were very difficult to deal with. They were buzzing around them, looking for an opportunity to attack their eyes. The monsters could not be bothered. One of the monsters was stung in the eye and immediately flew into a rage. They decided not to hit the mountain anymore and started to fight with the wasps. The wasps were probably afraid and started to retreat. The monster was not going to let them go and wanted to kill all these little things. It chased after them relentlessly. The swarm of bees had climbed over the mountain, and the monster had also climbed to the north of the mountain. If the swarm of bees had retreated quickly, the monster would have stopped chasing them. However, the Skynet poisonous bees would return after running a distance and continue to provoke them. The monster was completely enraged and chased after them relentlessly. Yun Chujio and the others were already hiding in the bushes. They were holding a few ropes in their hands. This was a new idea that Yun Chujio had come up with. Although the monster had many arms and legs, it relied on its 4 legs to move. As long as they could restrain its 4 legs first, they would be able to find a way to attack its eyes and arms and legs. The ground began to tremble slightly. From afar came the hissing sound of the monster. Everyone's heart was pounding nervously. The monster was here. Could they succeed? The swarm of bees gradually led the monster to the encirclement. The angry monster did not expect an ambush at all. It thought that Yun Chujio and the others were still trapped in the cave. The monster was tripped by several ropes. It wanted to stand up, but its 4 legs were entangled by several ropes. At the same time, several ropes were tied to the monster's limbs. The reason why Yun Chujio did this was that she was afraid that the remaining monsters would notice the spiritual attacks. Since the spiritual attacks of the others were useless, she might as well use the most primitive and brutal method. Although the monster was strong, it could still hold on for a while with dozens of people controlling one of its limbs. Yun Chujio took advantage of this short moment to raise the kitchen knife and cut at the monster's eyes. Although she did not know where the monster's vital point was, it was definitely right to blind its eyes first. The large kitchen knife could even cut off its limbs, so it was not difficult to blind the monster's eyes. As the monster screamed in pain, black juice flowed out of its eyes. Yun Chujio did not care about whether it was dirty or not, and cut the monster several times. Initially, the monster was still struggling fiercely. However, when Yun Chujio accidentally cut off a small protrusion on its head, the monster was like a deflated rubber ball. It turned into a flat piece of skin and collapsed on the ground. It died just like that. Before everyone could recover from their shock, the monster that was originally lying on the ground had turned into a wisp of black fog and disappeared. Everyone was stunned by the scene in front of them. This was beyond their understanding. Shouldn't the monster be a corpse after it died? It was still acceptable for it to turn into a flat skin, but how did it turn into a black fog? Yun Chujio had a strong foreboding feeling. There was probably something more terrifying behind these monsters. However, no matter what, everyone was still very happy that they had killed one monster. This was a good start. Most importantly, they had found the vital point of the monster. As long as they cooperated well, they should be able to kill even 2 monsters at once. Yun Chujio used the same trick again and let the bee swarm move out again. As expected, another monster was tricked by the bee swarm and was lured into an ambush. The process was the same as the previous one. Moreover, due to the team's better coordination, the monster was killed in less than 15 minutes this time. After the monster died, it first collapsed on the ground, then turned into a black fog and disappeared. Yun Chujio did not release the swarm of bees again. After using the same trick twice, she could not use it again. Because if she did not do it well, it would be self-defeating. She had to think of other ways. Yun Chujio glanced at everyone. Which one of you is willing to lure the monsters over? Everyone did not expect Yun Chujio to actually want to use humans as bait this time. They looked at each other and remained silent. This was not a joke. If they were not careful, they would lose their lives. Yun Chujio snorted coldly. You guys are still not comparable to those Tian Luo poisonous bees. They had just killed quite a number of worker bees. Don't tell me that they are just demonic beasts. If it weren't for them, our lives would have been lost long ago. Now we are comrades in arms fighting side by side. We have already gone to the demonic beasts twice. This time, it's our turn. Don't tell me that your guts are not as big as these little things. Everyone's faces were filled with shame. Finally, a small number of people expressed their willingness to be bait. Yun Chujio remembered these people and picked a few who had high spiritual power. The few of you follow me. The rest of you lie in ambush. When everyone heard Yun Chujio's words, they were all stunned. They thought that Yun Chujio would not risk her life at all. They did not expect that she would also be the bait. Some people's faces immediately turned red, feeling extremely ashamed of their own thoughts. Yun Chujio didn't have the time to care about them. She told Jin Ji and Shui Wuji to pay attention to some things before leading them to the monster's location. Yun Chujio took out the veil from her storage ring and gestured for everyone to put it on. Although they didn't know what Yun Chujio's intention was, they still put it on obediently. The reason why Yun Chujio asked everyone to put on the veil was to prevent the monster from recognizing them. In less than an hour, they arrived at the north side of the mountain where the monsters were. Yun Chujio said in a low voice, "Pretend to be new here and say something to attract the attention of the monsters." The few of them were in a dilemma. What should they say? Yun Chujio looked at them speechlessly and could only find a topic to talk about. She deliberately made her voice sharper and said, "Did you hear some strange sounds? It seems that something is hitting the mountain from the south side of the mountain." Then, everyone replied dryly, "You're right, there really is a strange sound. Yeah, this sound is so strange. It's really strange. Really strange." The corner of Yun Chujio's mouth twitched. These people's acting skills were really too bad. If it weren't for Shui Wuji and Jin Ji staying behind to guard the place, she wouldn't have brought these people here no matter what. However, those monsters didn't know much about the ways of the world, so it didn't matter if they were wrong. Fortunately, after these people spoke a few words, they weren't so nervous anymore, and their conversation became more normal. They also raised their voices under Yun Chujio's signal. The remaining 6 monsters had been in a stalemate with Yun Chujio and the others for a long time, so they were already hungry. When they heard someone speak, they immediately drooled. The 6 monsters hissed and discussed for a while before sending 2 monsters over the mountain peak to hunt for food. When Yun Chujio saw the 2 monsters appear, she screamed sharply, "Oh my God! Monsters! It's monsters!" Although she was shouting happily, everyone did not run fast. It was only when the 2 monsters were about to climb to the foot of the mountain that they quickened their pace. The 2 monsters hissed and chased after them. Yun Chujio and the others could have lured them to the ambush circle safely as long as they maintained their current speed. However, at this moment, one of the students was so nervous that he tripped over his left leg and his right leg and fell on the ground. He was so unlucky that he hit his head on a rock and passed out with a lot of blood. Everyone was in a dilemma. Time was extremely precious. If they were to bring the fallen student along, they would definitely delay the speed of the entire team. However, if they were to leave him alone, they would feel bad. Everyone turned their gazes towards Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio looked at the direction of the wind and said, "Carry him on your back. I have a way to delay the speed of these 2 monsters." It was not appropriate for everyone to ask. One of the stronger ones carried the man on his back and ran forward with all his might. When he could not run, another person would carry him. In this way, everyone's speed decreased a lot. Moreover, the smell of blood caused the 2 monsters to become even crazier. They were getting closer and closer to everyone. Everyone could not help but feel anxious. They asked anxiously, "Yun Chujio, don't you have a way? Use it quickly. Otherwise, we won't take our lives." Yun Chujio said softly, "It's no use if we're too far away. Let's wait a little longer." Everyone did not know what she was up to, so they could only run forward desperately. The 2 monsters saw that they were getting closer and closer to them. They could not help but let out excited hisses. One of them could not wait to swing its limbs to attack everyone. Everyone was so scared that they screamed. They were just a little bit away from being hit. Yun Chujio felt that the time was ripe. She threw the bodies of the 2 monsters. The 2 monsters caught the bodies of the monsters with their arms and legs. They sniffed and stuffed the bodies into their mouths. Yun Chujio then threw the bodies of the 2 monsters, but the monsters still swallowed them. Yun Chujio curled the corners of her mouth. This time, she did not throw the bodies of the animals. Instead, she threw 2 broken sacks. The 2 monsters thought that Yun Chujio was still throwing the dead bodies of the animals and habitually caught them with their arms and legs. The sacks had holes in them. When the monster's arms and legs pinched them, the chili inside the sacks instantly sprayed out. The monster was about to put it into its mouth, but the result was obvious. It was so hot that it could not open its eyes. However, Yun Chujio was still gloating in front of them. "Hey, do you guys think this chili is delicious? I still have some here. Do you guys want more? It looks weird, what the hell? Since you have legs, why do you still have arms and legs? It's so ugly. Do you guys dare to continue chasing? My chili is going to kill you." The 2 monsters did not want to continue chasing. Firstly, their eyes were hurting from the heat. Secondly, There were so many people in the cave. There was no need to run so far for these little ants. However, they were angered by Yun Chujio's words. They roared and started chasing again. Everyone took advantage of this gap to run far away. Moreover, they were getting closer and closer to the ambush, so they were not so nervous anymore. They cursed in their hearts. They thought that Yun Chujio had a good idea, but it turned out that she used chili noodles. Although this method was a little damaged, it really worked. The two monsters were eager to take revenge, so they did not notice the ambushers and were caught by the rope. Yun Chujio raised her knife and slashed down, one at a time. After cutting off the small protrusions on the two monsters' heads, the two monsters turned into black fog and disappeared. The people who followed Yun Chujio sat on the ground and panted heavily. Yun Chujio was not unusual, because she was often attacked, and her ability to escape was quite profound. Yun Chujio calculated that there were only 4 monsters left, so there was no need to hurry to attract them. She estimated that when they realized that something was wrong, they would scatter and search, and then she would think of ways to kill them separately. Yun Chujio was right. Although the 4 monsters were confused as to why the other 4 had not returned for a long time, they did not pay too much attention to it. They only cared about the humans trapped in the cave. Finally, with a boom, the cave collapsed. The 4 monsters immediately used their arms and legs to clean up the cave entrance, wanting to get the people inside out and eat them. However, when they finally finished clearing the hole after almost a day, they did not see a single person. They were so angry that they almost died. Therefore, the 4 monsters began to split up and search for Yun Chujio and the others. Yun Chujio and the others waited patiently. One monster killed another. It took about 3 days to kill all 4 monsters. When everyone saw that the monsters had been killed, they were immediately overjoyed and filled with laughter. However, Yun Chujio felt that things were not too optimistic. There were still 5 days before the trial ended. 5 days was too long. Anything could happen. Moreover, those monsters were too strange. She had never heard of anything that turned into black fog after it died. She subconsciously thought of the Shui Mo from the Heavenly Axe Pit. That Shui Mo was a red fog-like creature. Then, could these monsters also be a kind of demon? However, didn't they say that the devil died out hundreds of thousands of years ago? Previously, it was only because it was suppressed by the Heaven Punisher Divine Axe that it didn't die. Then what was going on? Yun Chujio told everyone about her worries. Although everyone felt a little uneasy, they felt that there shouldn't be anything else other than these 8 monsters, so they didn't pay too much attention to it. Everyone temporarily stayed in the cave. Whether it was day or night, Yun Chujio arranged for 10 people to be on guard in case anything unexpected happened. That night, it was a full moon. The moon in the sky was big and round, and the ground was bright and clear. Everything seemed peaceful and quiet. On such a quiet night, the people in the cave heard several screams one after another. Then, a person in charge of the guard rolled and crawled into the cave. There are monsters. A large group. Before that person finished his sentence, a monster crawled in. The cave where Yun Chujio and the others were in this time was not very narrow, so the monster easily crawled in. Put on the rope. Yun Chujio saw that everyone was stunned and hurriedly shouted. Although everyone was caught off guard, fortunately, they cooperated well in the past few days. They immediately followed the original arrangement of the team and tied the monster's limbs to give Yun Chujio a chance to kill it in one hit. When Yun Chujio saw that the monster's limbs were controlled, she jumped up and used the kitchen knife to cut off the small protrusion on the monster's head. The monster immediately collapsed on the ground and turned into black fog before disappearing. Before everyone could catch their breath, another monster crawled in. They could not help but feel lucky that the cave entrance was not very wide. Otherwise, if many monsters crawled in together, they would be dead for sure. They used their methods to kill another one, but another one crawled in. Everyone was numb from the killing. It was as if the monsters were endless. No one knew how many they had killed. Everyone's spiritual power and physical strength were quickly dissipating. Moreover, everyone had to cooperate with each monster they killed, so they did not have the chance to rest. Especially Yun Chujio. Every monster needed her to kill, so her physical strength and spiritual power were also depleting the fastest. No matter how abnormal she was, she could not hold on any longer. Yun Chujio knew that this was not the way to go on. It seemed like there was no way to kill all these monsters. Even if they were tired, they would die from exhaustion. She had to think of a way to end this once and for all. Even if she could think of a way, it would be good if she could take a breather. Yun Chujio suddenly remembered the method she had used in the trial tower. This cave could only allow one monster to enter. As long as the monster in front did not die, the monster in the back would not enter. Then she would let it die half dead. When Yun Chujio thought of this, she did not cut off all the little protrusions on the monster's head. Instead, she only cut off half of it. Yun Chujio was purely experimenting. She did not know how the monster's little protrusions would look like when half of them were cut off. After the monster's half-cut protrusions, it seemed to have become silly. Its eyes became dull and listless, and its limbs drooped involuntarily. How to describe it? It was as if a living person had become a puppet. A thought flashed through Yun Chujio's mind, but she could not catch it in the blink of an eye. Yun Chujio panted, indicating that everyone could take a breather. Everyone panted heavily. They did not dare to slack off too much, so they took turns to rest. There was always someone pulling the rope on the monster's limbs, afraid that the monster would suddenly explode. A hissing sound came from outside the cave. Obviously, the other monsters were asking about the situation inside the cave. As the monster inside did not respond, the hissing sound outside became impatient. Yun Chujio was secretly happy. No matter how impatient it was useless. Unless it was desperate and dragged the monster out of the cave, it would not be able to come in. After more than 2 hours, Yun Chujio saw that everyone had almost recovered. She was afraid that the monster outside the cave would discover something, so she took care of the monster inside the cave. Then, she did the same thing and cut off half of the small protrusions of the new monsters. Everyone was given another 2 hours of rest. Everyone admired Yun Chujio. She could even think of such a method. She was really smart. Yun Chujio felt that although this method could fool them for a while, it was not a long-term solution. Therefore, she summoned a few Skynet poisonous bees and let them go out to check how many monsters were outside. Yun Chujio felt that things were really illogical. According to the demon beasts, she had never seen these monsters before. It was as if these monsters had appeared out of thin air. Soon, the Skynet poisonous bees flew back and told Yun Chujio what they saw. Yun Chujio's expression immediately changed. According to the Skynet poisonous bees, there were actually monsters everywhere outside. Moreover, not only did those monsters eat demonic beasts, they even ate some trees and herbs. Yun Chujio frowned. She remembered that the 8 monsters did not eat trees and herbs. Why did these monsters even eat trees and herbs? Were they too hungry, or were they mutated? They would not eat rocks in the end, right? Yun Chujio felt that she could stand shoulder to shoulder with Xiao Hanyo, because just as she thought of this, there was a cracking sound coming from outside. Those monsters actually began to eat rocks. When everyone heard this creepy sound, their legs immediately went soft. If these rocks were eaten clean, they would really have no way to survive. No matter how they thought about it, they seemed to only have a dead end. Yun Chujio's mind was blank. Now they were like fish on a chopping board, they could only let the monsters slaughter them. Crack crack. The sound of the monsters gnawing on the rocks grew louder and louder. Apparently, they had already gnawed off a large part of the rocks. The cave was dead silent. Everyone could already feel the shadow of death. They did not expect that after fighting for so many days, they would still not be able to escape the fate of being eaten. There were only 4 days left until the end of the trial, but they could only watch as the monsters ate them. They were really unwilling. Yun Chujio tried to take out the small stone that the cliff of Tiandao gave her, but there was no reaction as expected. Yun Chujio clenched her fists and stared at the monster with a cold expression. She felt that there was only one way to do this, and that was to establish a temporary contract with the monster. Only in this way could they know the origins of these monsters and think of a way to survive. Yun Chujio shared her thoughts and everyone looked at her as if she was a lunatic. Regardless of whether this monster was a demonic beast or not, even if it was a demonic beast, its spiritual power level was much higher than Yun Chujio's. In the end, not only would the contract fail, she might even be devoured by this monster. Although Shui Wuji and Jin Ji knew that Yun Chujio was a monster, they were still worried. However, at this point, it seemed that there was no other way to survive. Yun Chujio immediately tried to establish a spiritual connection with the monster. Just as Yun Chujio's spiritual sense entered the monster's spiritual sense, it was entangled by a wisp of black fog. The wisp of black fog tried to devour Yun Chujio's spiritual sense like a ghost. Yun Chujio's primordial spirit immediately struck at the wisp of black fog with purple lightning. The wisp of black fog dissipated after being struck by several small lightning bolts. In everyone's eyes, the monster had actually disappeared into thin air. Yun Chujio did not have time to think carefully before another monster crawled in. Yun Chujio had everyone use ropes to control it and then directly sent their spiritual sense into it. Sure enough, it was exactly the same as before. A wisp of black mist wrapped around Yun Chujio's spiritual sense. After being struck by the lightning bolt, the monster disappeared into thin air. A very bold idea emerged in Yun Chujio's mind. To deal with these monsters, she simply needed to use spiritual power or brute force. She only needed to use her spiritual sense to attack. Therefore, when another monster crawled in, before everyone could control the monster, Yun Chujio's spiritual sense directly probed into the monster's spiritual sense and directed several bolts of lightning at the wisp of black fog. As the black fog dissipated, the monster disappeared into thin air again. Yun Chujio was so excited that she trembled slightly. When another monster came in, Yun Chujio waited until everyone controlled the monster. She cut off half of the small protrusions and told them about her discovery. Everyone felt that the matter was really unbelievable. Only Yun Chujio's divine sense could disperse the black fog, or could everyone? A few of the more daring ones decided to give it a try. In any case, they could just sever their spiritual sense. At most, their spiritual sense would be damaged. The results of their attempts made everyone very excited. Although their operations were not as easy as Yun Chujio's, it was still not a problem for 7 or 8 people to work together to deal with a monster's spiritual sense. Thus, everyone began to speed up the process of killing the monster. Everyone was organized into several groups so that they would not be too tired and their efficiency would be higher. Everyone was pleasantly surprised to find that as the number of monsters killed increased, their spiritual sense also increased a little. This would be very beneficial for their future cultivation. In the end, no monster dared to approach the cave. Everyone was elated. There were only 3 days left until the end of the trial. They only needed to endure another 3 days and they would be completely safe. Yun Chujio's heart was not very stable. She felt that there must be something even more terrifying behind these monsters. What was it? Not only did Yun Chujio arrange for the students to stand guard at the entrance of the cave, she also arranged for several Tianluo poisonous wasps to patrol the surroundings to prevent them from being caught off guard by the monsters. When the moon rose, a Tianluo poisonous wasp flew in and informed Yun Chujio that all the monsters outside had disappeared. After Yun Chujio heard it, not only was she not excited, but the worry in her heart was even greater. She felt that an even greater danger was about to arrive. What Yun Chujio did not know was that at the same time, in the other regions of the Tianluo mystic realm, the students who were being hunted down and tortured suddenly realized that those terrifying monsters had disappeared. Everyone had survived the disaster and could not help but rejoice that they had survived. Compared to the regions where Yun Chujio and the others were located, the monsters in these regions were much fewer. There were only about 5 or 6 of them. Even so, many people were killed and injured because they could not find their vital points. Yun Chujio got up and went outside the cave. The originally lush trees had been eaten by the monsters, leaving only bare soil. Even a large part of the rocks on the cave had been eaten away. Yun Chujio climbed to the top of the mountain and looked into the distance. What she saw could only be described as a complete mess. Other than the mountain range that was still alive, everything else was eaten up by the monsters. Yun Chujio frowned. Those monsters didn't seem to be demonic beasts, so where did all the food they ate go? Why did they suddenly change so much, and even mutate again? They were obviously transformed by the black fog. What was that black fog? Yun Chujio felt that her mind was filled with questions. She sat on the mountaintop for a while, but she could not think of anything. Yun Chujio sighed, climbed down the mountaintop, and walked into the cave. She did not see the students guarding the entrance of the cave, so she could not help but frown. She continued to walk into the cave, thinking that she should scold the students who had left their posts without permission. Then she was stunned. Everyone in the cave had disappeared. The cave was empty. Only the bonfire on the ground was still burning, but everyone had disappeared into thin air. Yun Chujio rubbed her eyes. Brother Wuji. Beauty Jinji. Sister Bingyu. Yun Chujio called out several times, but only her own reply came back. Yun Chujio quickly asked the patrolling Tian Luo poisonous bees. The Tian Luo poisonous bees said that they had been patrolling outside the cave. They did not know what was happening inside the cave at all. Yun Chujio knocked on the cave and did not find anything wrong. Besides, if there was anything wrong, there would not be an accident now. She felt that the disappearance of these people must be related to the thing behind the monster. Where did it take the people? If Yun Chujio was a cold-hearted person, she could completely ignore the lives of those people. She only needed to wait for 3 more days and she would be able to leave safely. Unfortunately, she was not. Although she was sometimes wicked and evil, she could not leave her friends to die. She knew that if she did not go and save them, Shui Wuji and Jinji would only die. Yun Chujio's mind was in a mess. She had no clue at all. These people seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Where would she go to save them? Yun Chujio walked around the cave like a headless fly for dozens of rounds before she finally calmed down. No matter how anxious she was, it was useless. She had to calm down before she could think of an effective solution. The most important thing now was to find out where they were trapped. This Tianluo mystic realm was so vast that it had no boundaries. Even the area they were in was very vast. Where exactly had Shui Wuji and the others been taken to? Yun Chujio was in a hurry to think of a feasible solution. She released all the poisonous wasps of Tianluo from her spirit beast bag. There were hundreds of thousands of them. She told them to quickly spread out and report to her as soon as there was anything wrong. These poisonous wasps of Tianluo immediately flew away. Yun Chujio knew that she still had a tough battle to fight, so she forced herself to close her eyes to meditate so that she could reserve enough energy. An hour passed, but there was no news. 2 hours passed, but there was still no news. 4 hours, 6 hours. When the sun rose, finally, a Tianluo poisonous wasp sent the news. According to it, it found a cave with black fog drifting away, and the black fog looked similar to the black fog when the monster dissipated. Yun Chujio was immediately delighted and rode the demon beast to the location pointed out by the Skynet wasp. The demon beasts ran with Yun Chujio on their backs as fast as they could. They were very glad that if it were not for Yun Chujio, they would have been devoured by the monster by now. If they didn't destroy the thing behind the monsters, they wouldn't be able to survive in the future. Therefore, they were now like grasshoppers on the same rope as Yun Chujio. They could only support each other in order to fight their way out. Yun Chujio changed several demon beasts in succession and finally reached the position pointed out by the Skynet poisonous bee at the fastest speed. The Skynet poisonous bee was very smart. It hid behind a mound. In addition to its small size, it wasn't discovered by the black fog that was spreading everywhere. Yun Chujio, on the other hand, could not do that. Her target was too big, and she was discovered by the black fog as soon as she got close. The black fog immediately turned into several monsters and pounced on Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio also went all out. She divided her spiritual sense into several parts and attacked the monsters separately. If others knew that Yun Chujio did this, they would definitely call her a lunatic. Spiritual sense was extremely important and extremely fragile. If her spiritual sense was killed, her spiritual sense would be severely injured. At worst, it would hinder her cultivation in the future. At worst, she would become a fool. However, Yun Chujio had no other choice at this moment. She was alone. She could only use this method to quickly kill those monsters. Fortunately, the purple lightning in Yun Chujio's spiritual sense seemed to be the nemesis of the black fog. In the blink of an eye, the black fog in the spiritual sense of the monsters was destroyed by the lightning, and the monsters disappeared into thin air. Yun Chujio withdrew her spiritual sense, holding a large kitchen knife in her hand, and carefully approached the cave. As soon as she approached the cave, Yun Chujio smelled the thick smell of blood. Her head buzzed. Was she too late? Yun Chujio thought that Xue Wuji and Jin Ji had met with misfortune. Her eyes turned red, and there was even a faint sound of purple lightning crackling inside. Yun Chujio did not notice the strange phenomenon in her eyes. At this moment, she only had one thought, and that was to save people. This cave was not formed naturally because Yun Chujio found that the ground was actually paved with green stone slabs. What frightened Yun Chujio the most was that there was actually a pattern of the resurrection lily on the green stone slabs. Was it the Divine Devil Hall again? Why were there frequent traces of the Divine Devil Hall in the ancient mystic realm? Yun Chujio had a vague idea in her heart, but she felt that it was very absurd. She felt that her heart had been too tense recently, which was why she had such an absurd idea. Yun Chujio originally thought that there would be another black fog coming to stop her in the tunnel, but she did not expect that she had actually reached the end of the tunnel very smoothly. At the end of the tunnel was a wide stone hall. Yun Chujio did not have the time to examine the structure of the stone hall, because she felt that the blood in her body was about to freeze. Xue Wuji and the others were fixed on the stone wall. Each of their chests had been cut open, and there was a limb sucking blood on the wound. These limbs belonged to a red monster. The monster's body was coiled on a stone platform, and its appearance was exactly the same as the previous monsters. However, the color was more gorgeous, and there was a black horn on its head. Yun Chujio jumped up and raised the kitchen knife, slashing at the black horn on the monster's head. She felt that the black horn must be the monster's weakness. The monster hissed and sneered, but it did not release its blood-sucking limbs. The black horn on its head emitted countless black fog and wrapped around Yun Chujio. The black fog did not turn into a monster, but directly invaded Yun Chujio's spiritual sense. The intention was obvious. It was to devour Yun Chujio's spiritual sense. After the monster hissed and sneered, it said in human language, "Little girl, I originally wanted to capture you and bring you back, but I didn't expect you to be lucky enough to escape. You are really stupid. You actually came to me by yourself. Since that's the case, I will fulfill your wish. The blood of the heavenly thunder spirit root is like a tiger with wings to help me recover my strength." Although Yun Chujio wanted to scold him, she was currently engaged in a chaotic battle in her spiritual sense, so she had no time to pay attention to him. At first, the monster was still feeling smug, but soon, it couldn't feel smug anymore. That was because it realized that not only did Yun Chujio's spiritual sense contain purple lightning, but there were also countless weapon spirits. Those Qiling had been hungry for a long time. They did not dare to devour Yun Chujio's spiritual sense. Now that they saw the black fog, they were like hungry wolves. They were all Qiling who attacked spirit or immortal weapons. They had always tried to fight. Now that they finally had a chance, they were naturally elated. Yun Chujio saw that she did not need to do anything. She simply withdrew her spiritual sense and left the black fog to the Qiling to deal with. Yun Chujio raised her hand and released all the demonic beasts. Attack together. Kill it. The monster couldn't believe its eyes. How could this stinky girl have such a large number of demonic beasts? And they were all high-level demonic beasts? No wonder the monsters it sent out before didn't catch any high-level demonic beasts. It turned out that they were all in the hands of this stinky girl. In order to survive, the demon beasts began to attack the monster's limbs. Although the monster's limbs were extremely tough, they could not withstand the attacks of so many demon beasts. They had no choice but to stop sucking blood and use their limbs to deal with the demon beasts. Yun Chujio took the large kitchen knife and slashed at the monster's black horn again. Seeing that the black fog was of limited effect, the monster suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a stream of black poison that was as black as ink towards Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio did not dodge. The large kitchen knife in her hand still slashed at the monster's black horn. Crack! The monster's black horn broke. What Yun Chujio expected did not happen. The monster did not turn into black fog and disappear like the previous monsters. The monster hissed, "Stupid girl! You actually destroyed my devil's horn. However, as long as I absorb the blood of these people and demonic beasts, my devil's horn will grow back. As for you, you've already been poisoned by my venom. You're dead." Yun Chujio looked at it as if it was an idiot. She raised her kitchen knife and slashed at its right eye. The monster thought that Yun Chujio was dead for sure after being poisoned by the poison. It did not expect that Yun Chujio would be able to cut it again. It was too late for it to stop Yun Chujio with its limbs. The monster's right eye was cut into a bloody mess by Yun Chujio. It flew into a rage and used its thickest limb to strangle Yun Chujio, wanting to strangle her to death. Yun Chujio slashed at the limb, and the bucket-sized limb was instantly cut off, and black juice flowed out from it. The monster was both shocked and scared. You're not human. How can you not be afraid of my venom?" Yun Chujio still did not say anything. She jumped up again and slashed at the monster's left eye. Although she was usually willing to be arrogant, it did not mean that she did not know her limits. At this time, the priority was to kill the monster. There was no need to argue with it. The monster knew the power of the big kitchen knife. It cunningly rolled up a few students to block in front of it. It laughed strangely and hissed, "Stupid girl, go ahead and attack. Quickly put down the kitchen knife, or I will strangle them to death." The students looked terrified. They did not know what Yun Chujio would choose. Even if they were sacrificed, it was still acceptable. After all, sacrificing more than 10 of them could save the remaining hundreds of people. Yun Chujio stared at the monster's left eye. The purple lightning in her eye started to crackle. Both the monster and the students were stunned by this strange scene. How could there be a purple lightning in a human's eye? However, they suddenly felt that their spiritual sense was a little blurry. They tried their best to open their eyes, but they could not. The monster's left eye had also become blurry. Yun Chujio did not know what was happening in her eyes, but she seemed to be a little distracted when she saw the monster. How could she let go of such a perfect opportunity? Yun Chujio jumped up and slashed at the monster's left eye. Then, she took the opportunity to cut off the monster's limbs and saved the trapped students. Yun Chujio jumped to the ground and cut off the monster's 4 legs. Then she slashed at the monster. The monster was furious. She didn't believe that it wouldn't die even if she chopped the monster into meat paste. At first, the monster tried to struggle, but it met a monster. Yun Chujio's body had been dyed black, but she was still alive and kicking. On the contrary, some students and monsters were accidentally contaminated by the black liquid, and a piece of their flesh was corroded. The monster gradually lost its breath. Just when Yun Chujio was about to let out a sigh of relief, a cloud of black mist flew out of the monster's body, trying to escape. Yun Chujio used her spiritual sense to kill the cloud of black mist in a moment of desperation. The cloud of black mist struggled desperately. "Stupid girl! I was about to retreat. Why do you still refuse to let me go? Aren't you afraid that I will perish together with you?" Yun Chujio kept striking at the black fog with purple lightning, sneering, "Burn myself to the ground? A person like you is at most a rotten egg. What's there to burn? Prepare to die." The black fog hissed, Good. Since you're so stubborn, I'll kill you even if I can't get you back." As the black fog spoke, it suddenly began to spread, like a balloon being inflated. Mao Xianqiu suddenly said to Yun Chujio, "Master, Jing Jing said that you must think of a way quickly. Otherwise, if that thing self-detonates, not only you, but the entire Tianluo arcane realm will be finished." Yun Chujia's head was buzzing. Think of a way? Think of a way? She had already used all her strength to attack the black fog with her spiritual sense, but there was no way to completely destroy it in a short period of time. How could she stop it from self-destructing? In a moment of desperation, Yun Chujio used her hand to tear apart the black fog. This fellow's idea was very simple. The balloon would naturally break after it was pierced through. The black fog would make it split into two, so it would not be able to explode. The result was obvious. The black fog was not solid, and Yun Chujia's plan to tear the black fog apart completely failed. She was ridiculed by the monster. Hisses. Stupid girl, do you know fear? As long as you stop your spiritual sense attack and let me out, I will stop self-destructing. Otherwise, all of you present will die. Yun Chujio ignored it. All sorts of ideas flashed through her mind. If she could not tear it apart with her hands, her spiritual sense attack would not be effective for a while. What should she do? The black fog saw that not only did Yun Chujio not stop her attack, but her attack became even more intense. It was instantly angered from embarrassment, and the black fog began to expand rapidly. Seeing this, Yun Chujio was furious. She did not care about anything else and opened her mouth to suck in the black fog. The great void mirror in her dantian was so angry that it almost turned into a corpse. Was this guy afraid that she would not die thoroughly enough? If the black fog expanded in her body, she would be blown into pieces. Just as the great void mirror was thinking about this, Yun Chujio said with her spiritual sense, "Listen up, the three of you. If you don't think of a way to deal with this monster, you will become homeless stray dogs." Guai Chao in her dantian, black bead in her dantian, supreme void mirror in her dantian. Are you crazy? What does this have to do with them? This is like pushing a duck onto the rack. Yun Chujio was very calculating in her heart. Since the supreme void mirror could see that the monster was about to explode, there must be a way to stop it. Moreover, the Guai Chao could be ignored. The black bead usually ate everything except for food. It was time for it to contribute. Finally, Yun Chujio was not stupid. Of course, she would not risk her life to not swallow the black fog. She only swallowed a part of it to test the reaction of the three in her dantian before making her next move. When the black mist saw Yun Chujio biting it with her mouth, it was dumbfounded. It had thought of many possibilities, but it did not expect Yun Chujio to actually want to suck it into her stomach. Was there something wrong with this stupid girl's head? Wasn't she courting death? But it was fine. Since she was courting death, she would fulfill her wish. Therefore, the small portion of the black mist that was swallowed by Yun Chujio was going to sneak into Yun Chujio's dantian. As long as she blew up the stupid girl's dantian, she would die. Once this stinky girl died, the remaining humans and demonic beasts were nothing to be afraid of. The monster thought very well, but when it reached Yun Chujio's dantian, it was dumbfounded. Fuck, was this a human's dantian? Whose dantian was filled with purple lightning? If it entered the dantian, it would be suicide. The monster quickly wanted to run back. No matter what, any place was much safer than the dantian. It was quite wishful thinking. Before it could run, it was sucked into the dantian by a huge suction force. Then there was no then. Countless purple lightning bolts struck the black fog clean, as if nothing had happened. The leaves of the Guai Chao swayed. "Oh, this little girl's move actually worked?" It was really a blind cat meeting a dead mouse. The grand illusionary mirror glanced at the black bead. It had originally planned to make a move, but it did not expect the black bead to make a move before it did. This old thing was really proactive this time. The monster outside screamed. It did not expect that Yun Chujio's dantian actually had purple lightning. What kind of monster was this? The monster was afraid that Yun Chujio would devour it again, so it changed its face. It said pitifully, "Stinky, little girl, little fairy, let's talk it out. As long as you let me go, I will definitely not mistreat you. I will give you all the Tianluo flowers and high-level herbs in the Tianluo mystic realm as a reward. Not only that, I will also agree to 3 conditions. With such a powerful helper like me, you will definitely become a powerhouse in the future." Yun Chujio bared her little white teeth. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in any strong person. I'm hungry now. As Yun Chujio spoke, she began to suck on the black fog. If she let go of this monster, wouldn't she become the farmer who was bitten by a snake? She was not that stupid. The black fog struggled desperately, but Yun Chujio's spiritual sense had been firmly locked onto it. It had no way of escaping. In addition, Yun Chujio had sucked all kinds of strange poison in the past, so she had some experience in swallowing things. Not long after, she bit off another part of the black fog. After that part of the black fog was sucked into Yun Chujio's body, she was afraid that it would be hit by the small lightning in her dantian, so she planned to explode on the spot and kill Yun Chujio first. Unexpectedly, there was a huge suction force from her dantian. She had no choice but to be sucked into her dantian again, and was struck into nothingness by the small purple lightning. The remaining black fog outside said in a flustered and exasperated manner, "Stinky girl. You are the monster. How do you think they will look at you when they see that you can actually suck me dry? If I were you, I would kill these people to silence them and then join hands with me to share the glory of eternal life. You should take care of yourself." Yun Chujio smiled brightly. "Thank you for the reminder, but I still have to eat you because I am even hungrier now. You'll regret it. I curse you to be eternally doomed. You'll die a horrible death." Before the black fog could finish speaking, it was swallowed by Yun Chujio. Then it met the same fate as the black fog from before. After it was sucked into the dantian, it was struck into nothingness by the purple lightning. Yun Chujio looked inside and saw that there was nothing wrong. Then she looked at the people trapped on the ground and the stone wall. "I don't want people to know that I'm not afraid of the black poison and the black fog. So you can swear." Yun Chujio's voice was very calm, but her tone was unyielding. Everyone obediently swore. It was not because they were aware of it, nor was it because they were grateful. It was because no matter who was forced by the kitchen knife to their neck, they would not dare to refuse. Yun Chujio saved the person who was fixed to the wall. After letting everyone take the healing pills, she sat on the spot and meditated. Yun Chujio used this opportunity to make up a story, saying that the monster was struck by lightning and died suddenly. This way, she could avoid a lot of trouble. Of course, she still had to tell everyone about the resurrection lily. She could use this excuse to tell Dean Gong's son about Teacher Ma. Yun Chujio pried off a few pieces of blue stone from the ground and prepared to use them as evidence. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. Yun Chujio was prying the stone slab when she noticed the movement of the stone table under the monster. Everyone's expression changed. Could there be another monster? Even if Yun Chujio was a monster, it would be hard enough if another one came. Yun Chujio held a large kitchen knife and stared at the stone table. Unexpectedly, a pitiful cry for help came from inside. "Help! Help! Quickly save me! I'm the Qi Ling of this Tianluo mystic realm." "Qi Ling?" Yun Chujio frowned. She took out a rolling pin and made it grow longer. Then she hit the stone platform. The stone platform was immediately smashed into several pieces. Only then did everyone realize that the stone platform was empty. There was a strange thing inside. Although that thing looked 70% human-like, it had a pair of huge protruding ears and a furry tail behind it. That thing was tightly bound by the iron chain. It cried, "Good Samaritan, please save me. Please help me untie the chain. I'm the Qi Ling of this Tianluo mystic realm. As long as you let me go, I'll definitely be rewarded." Everyone looked at Yun Chujio. After this series of events, they had treated Yun Chujio as their backbone. They did not dare to make decisions casually. Yun Chujio glanced at the thing that called itself Qi Ling and curled her lips. "You said that you are the Qi Ling of Tianluo mystic realm. How can you prove it? I think you must be the remnant of that monster." The thing whimpered, "Aren't you making things difficult for me? How can I prove that I am me? This is an unreasonable request. If I were the remnant of that thing, would I be trapped here? How to prove it is your own business. If you can't prove it, then I can only kill you to prevent any future troubles." Yun Chujio said with a cold smile. That thing rolled its eyes and stopped crying. Its tone became fierce. Damn girl. Don't refuse the toast with force. I am the Qi Ling of this Tian Luo mystic realm. If you don't let me go, none of you will be able to get out. Even if your teleportation formation is useless, you will be trapped here until you die. Some people looked at Yun Chujio when they heard what the thing said. The meaning was obvious. It was better to let the thing go. Otherwise, it would be bad if they were trapped here. Yun Chujio walked to the thing with a big kitchen knife. She rubbed the kitchen knife on the thing's face. Are you threatening me? I dare to kill that monster. What are you, a Qiling? If you really have spiritual power, would you ask us for help? Are you kidding me? The creature's eyes flickered. Although my spiritual power is trapped, I still have a lot of supernatural powers. Otherwise, how do you think you guys got here? Wasn't it me who teleported you here? After the creature finished speaking, it immediately received the resentful gazes of everyone. It was dumbfounded. It's over. It said it was bald. Yun Chujio looked at that thing coldly, but she did not curse it. Instead, she said slowly, you can teleport us away now. That way, no one will look for you to settle the score. Then, you can be tied up like this forever. This little posture is quite beautiful. That thing almost passed out. Beautiful? Try being tied up like a dumpling. Although it could teleport Yun Chujio and the others away, no one could help it remove the chains on its body. Although it could teleport people from other areas, it was still worried. Qi Ling was very shrewd. Although it was trapped under the stone platform, it could still learn everything that had happened. It felt that although the little girl in front of it was a little sinister, she had a kind nature. At the very least, she would not kill it. If she found someone else, then it would be hard to say. Missy, I was wrong. Let's discuss it properly, okay? As long as you save me, I will definitely repay you properly. Qi Ling was cowardly and decided that no matter what, she would first regain her freedom. Everyone was stunned by the speed at which Qi Ling changed her expression. She had a threatening expression just a moment ago, but now she had become so obsequious. If she was not tied up, her tail would probably be wagging. Yun Chujio glanced at Qi Ling. How are you going to repay me? Qi Ling rolled her eyes. Didn't you come in to pick the sky luo flowers? I will give you a lot of sky luo flowers. Yun Chujio sneered. Let's talk about the matter of repayment. Tell me about the monster honestly. If you dare to lie, Qi Ling blinked its eyes and was about to say something. Yun Chujio took the kitchen knife and cut a hole on its ear. This is a warning. Don't think that I don't know what you're planning. If you dare to be dishonest, I'll cut off your ears and fry them. Qi Ling felt that it was most likely wrong. What kind of character was this? This was a vicious and merciless female devil. Hence, it changed its mind. Qi Ling silently recited the chant in its heart. It was fully convinced that after reciting the chant, these people would all disappear in front of it. After it finished reciting, it sadly discovered that, indeed, almost all the people had disappeared. However, the people it hated the most did not disappear. They were still in front of it. It then remembered that the monster had set up a formation on this stone platform. Otherwise, it would have taken the monster away long ago. Yun Chujio was very smart. When she saw that everyone had disappeared on the spot, she knew that this was the work of the Qi Ling. With a thought, she also understood the reason why she was not teleported away. Yun Chujio used the kitchen knife to cut the Qi Ling's big ear again. She said coldly, Fine, you little thing, you actually played tricks on me. Unfortunately, there should be a formation here, right? You didn't teleport me away. How do you think I should punish you? Should I cut off your ear or your tail? The Qi Ling said in a hurry, Miss, you misunderstood me. I was afraid that after they heard about the benefits I gave you, they would get greedy and treat you badly, so I sent them away. Little thing, do you really believe what you just said? Cut the crap. I want the seeds of the 1,000-leaf golden grade lotus and the dragon blood ginseng. If you can take them out, I'll let you go. Otherwise, I'll kill you with lightning. Qi Ling shivered. Although it was very tough and would not die easily, It was still a little afraid of lightning. Moreover, this female devil in front of him used a knife to chop at him without a word. It was really deadly. Miss, my Tianluo mystic realm only has the dragon blood ginseng and not the lotus seeds of the 1,000-leaf golden grade lotus. Can I use other heaven-grade spirit herbs to compensate you? Yun Chujio also knew that it was already very good that she could find one of these two herbs. Therefore, after bargaining, Yun Chujio extorted a lot of defensive spirit tools and heaven-grade spirit herbs from the Qi Ling before she reached an agreement. After Yun Chujio put the item into her storage ring, she looked at the Qi Ling with a smile and had no intention of letting it go. Qi Ling panicked. Miss, why didn't you let me go? Yun Chujio looked at it with a smile. Because I didn't keep my word. I bullied Qi Ling. Do you have any objections? Qi Ling choked and fainted. It was too shameless. It had never seen such a shameless person. Yun Chujio curled her lips and poured a basin of cold water on Qi Ling. The sad Qi Ling woke up and cried loudly. You can't bully Qi Ling like this. Doesn't your conscience hurt? That's enough. Tell me about that monster. As long as you tell me the truth, I'll let you go, Yun Chujio said with a serious expression. Qi Ling pouted and told her what happened. Qi Ling had always been the ruler of the Tianluo arcane realm. It was living a comfortable life. However, 3 months ago, the monster suddenly broke into the place where Qi Ling was and brought Qi Ling to this cave. The Qi Ling summoned some demon beasts to rescue it, but unfortunately, they were all killed by the monster. Seeing this, the Qi Ling had no choice but to give up the idea of letting the demon beasts rescue it. It could only place its hopes on the humans who had come for the trial. It was unknown if the monster still had the Qi Ling, but it didn't do anything other than tying it up and trapping it inside the stone platform. Ever since the monster entered the cave, it had never gone out. It had only recently transformed its spiritual sense into a few monsters to go out to hunt for food. Especially on the night of the full 15th month, it released countless monsters. It seemed that as the monsters ate, its strength became stronger. Miss, I have no choice but to bring those people here. That monster threatened me. If I don't bring those people here, it will kill all the creatures in the other areas. I will surrender, Qi Ling said guiltily. Yun Chujio snorted. It would be a ghost if she believed its nonsense. It was probably because the monster threatened Qi Ling that Qi Ling gave in. Yun Chujio was concerned about another matter. She asked Qi Ling, let me ask you, when was this cave built? And who carved the patterns on the green stone slabs on the ground? Qi Ling looked confused and innocent. Miss, I can swear to God that since I became conscious, I have never found a cave here. If I hadn't been caught and brought here, I wouldn't have known that there was such a place in my territory. Then when did you become conscious? I can't count it. It has existed for tens of thousands of years. Qi Ling looked a little uncomfortable when he said this. He kept calling her little sister, as if he was pretending to be young. Yun Chujio looked at Qi Ling's expression. It didn't look like it was lying. Could it be that the so-called Divine Devil Hall had existed for tens of thousands of years? Yun Chujio felt that the Divine Devil Hall was very strange and dangerous. Su Yenran was taken away by a pair of giant hands that tore through the void. She didn't know where she was taken to. Yun Chujio had a feeling that she and Su Yenran would meet again. At that time, Su Yanran's strength would probably become very terrifying. Qi Ling saw that Yun Chujio's expression had changed and did not speak, so he anxiously urged her, Miss, I've told you everything I know. Quickly let me go. If you bring her back, I'll let you go. I won't lie to you this time. Yun Chujio recovered and said to Qi Ling brought Xue Wuji and the others back and looked at Yun Chujio expectantly. Yun Chujio curled her lips. Little thing, why don't you learn your lesson? I'm just teasing you. Qi Ling, damn it, it didn't want to live anymore. No one should stop it. It decided to die of stupidity. Xue Wuji and the others looked at the scene in front of them in confusion. Why was it that after a while, the Qi Ling was like an eggplant that had been hit by frost? Wasn't he quite lively before? Enough. Stop pretending to be dead. These people were all brought here by you. You can't let them be scared for nothing, right? Hurry up and get some compensation for them. This time, I promise I won't lie to you. Yun Chujio used the tip of her foot to kick the Qi Ling that was pretending to be dead. Qi Ling sobbed and gave everyone some sky luo flowers and high-level spirit herbs. Then, it looked at Yun Chujio pitifully. First, swear that you won't take revenge on us. Then he'll let you go. Yun Chujio didn't think that the Qi Ling in front of her was easy to get along with. It was always right to make it swear. The Qi Ling originally had a little thought of revenge, but now it had completely dispelled it because it finally understood that the person in front of it was not human. It was better not to play tricks with her. After Yun Chujio waited for the Qi Ling to make the poison vow, she reached out her hand to help the Qi Ling open the chain. She did not expect that the chain was made of an unknown material. She could not open it at all. Moreover, she did not find any mechanism. Yun Chujio spread her hands helplessly. Little thing, it's not that I have broken my promise. It's just that I can't open the chain that binds you. The Qi Ling was about to howl. It had given away its things and its moral integrity, but in the end, it could not open the chain? Was there anything worse than this in the world? Yun Chujio's conscience was rarely on the line. She probed, "Why don't I throw you into the fire and burn you? Maybe I can melt the chain." Qi Ling rolled his eyes. This time he really fainted. Throw him into the fire and burn him? Are you sure you want to unchain him and not burn him to death? Yun Chujio touched her nose. Was what she said wrong? Qi Ling was not a demon beast. He should not be able to burn him to death, right? Jin Ji really could not stand it. She walked to Yun Chujio's side and said, "Little Jio, try using your big kitchen knife. I think your big kitchen knife should be able to cut the chain." Yun Chujio felt that Jin Ji's words made sense, so she raised her big kitchen knife and prepared to cut the chain on Qi Ling's body. Coincidentally, Qi Ling woke up at this time. When she opened her eyes, she saw Yun Chujio raising her big kitchen knife to cut it. She was so scared that she rolled her eyes and fainted again. The corner of Yun Chujio's eyes twitched. It was rare for Qi Ling to be so stupid. Yun Chujio took the big kitchen knife and cut the chain. She did not expect it to cut the chain as easily as cutting a radish. Yun Chujio had the principle of not wasting good things, so she put the chain into her storage ring naturally. Qi Ling woke up again and found that she had regained her freedom. She was so happy that she did not want it anymore. Qi Ling clearly remembered to eat but not to hit. Although Yun Chujio had taught it a lesson previously, ever since Yun Chujio had treated it to a barbecue, it had been following Yun Chujio around. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the trial to end. Yun Chujio cancelled the temporary contract between the demon beast and the queen bee. Then, she comforted Qi Ling, who was crying. A white light flashed and they left the Tianluo mystic realm. The people outside the Tianluo mystic realm had no idea what was happening in the mystic realm. When they saw that less than 70% of the people had come out, they all panicked. Everyone talked about their experiences. The people in the other regions had only been attacked by monsters. They did not know anything else. Everyone was confused. In the end, a certain Geo came online and told them everything. Of course, in the process of explaining, there was naturally some work to be done, especially highlighting a certain Geo's lofty sentiment of taking the big picture into consideration and sacrificing herself for others. Although the people who were saved by Yun Chujio felt that this guy was a little exaggerated, they also nodded their heads. If it weren't for Yun Chujio, they wouldn't have been able to escape. After Yun Chujio was done talking, she took out the green stone slab with the Higan flower pattern and told them about the situation regarding the Divine Devil Hall in the Qingxian continent and the Tianyuan continent. She didn't tell them about Teacher Ma in front of everyone. She wanted to see how everyone would react. Moreover, who knew if Teacher Ma had any accomplices? It was better to tell Dean Gong's son in secret so as to avoid alerting him. When everyone heard Yun Chujio's words, they were instantly in an uproar. Divine Demon Hall? Earth Profound Chi? Dean Gong's son and Dean Duanmu looked at each other. Although they usually didn't see eye to eye, this matter was of great importance. At this moment, The two of them had finally gotten rid of their differences and gathered together to discuss this matter. The two of them had a simple discussion. They felt that this matter was not something that their two academies could resolve. They had to inform the other factions before making any further plans. This time, many people had died and injured, especially in the W.A. Stone Academy. Their student identities were not ordinary. One could imagine that it would cause a huge uproar. The two principals were deeply worried. If they had known this would happen, they would not have allowed the students to enter the Tianluo mystic realm. However, there was nothing they could do to make up for their regret. They could only let the students and the teachers return to the academy first and deal with the aftermath. The next day, Yun Chujio went to Dean Gongsun and told him about Teacher Ma. Of course, this fellow also did some processing. He said that Teacher Ma had been killed by a golden light and that the credit was placed on Tiandao Cliff. Dean Gongsun heard this and the worry in his heart grew. Teacher Ma had entered Xingtian Academy more than 10 years ago. Could it be that the Divine Devil Hall had already started their preparations at that time? Yun Chujio passed the jade token of the Resurrection Lily and the identity jade token that she had found from Teacher Ma to Dean Gongsun. Then she said, "Dean, there might be some of Teacher Ma's accomplices in this academy. Therefore, it's best not to announce Teacher Ma's matter to the public, lest we alert the enemy." Dean Gongsun nodded. "I understand. You also have to be more careful. This time, you've ruined the Divine Devil Hall's good deed. I'm afraid they won't let you off." Yun Chujio's heart skipped a beat, and she said with a troubled expression, "Dean, what you said is exactly what I'm worried about. I didn't sleep last night. I have a favor to ask of you, and I want to ask for your help." "What is it?" "I can be said to be a thorn in the Divine Devil Hall's side right now. Moreover, they are in the dark while I'm in the light. My situation is really too dangerous. I heard that in a few months, the Primordial Chaos sect will be recruiting new disciples, so I want to apply. Can you grant me 2 months of leave? If I can pass, I will go to the Primordial Chaos sect. If I can't pass, I will return to school." Yun Chujio said sincerely. Dean Gongsun was in a difficult position. Usually, it was fine to ask for leave, but if he went to apply for the Primordial Chaos sect midway, it wouldn't make sense. Besides, although Yun Chujio's spiritual power had increased, it was almost like a fool's dream for her to get into the Primordial Chaos sect. There was no way she could get into the sect. Dean, as the saying goes, special matters are specially handled. To put it bluntly, if it weren't for my intelligence and cleverness, all the students in the two academies would have died. I have made a great contribution. If anyone is unconvinced, you can ask him to look for me personally. I'll definitely make him completely convinced." Yun Chujio straightened her back. She spoke quite confidently. When Dean Gongsun heard Yun Chujio's words, his heart relaxed a little. Indeed, if it wasn't for this little girl, he would have reached his limit as the dean. "Dean, what if I manage to pass the entrance examination? This would also give our Xingtian Academy's dean face, wouldn't it? When the time comes, our Xingtian Academy will be able to suppress the W.A. Stone Academy. This is a win-win situation." These words were said in Dean Gongsun's heart. He had spent most of his energy on competing with Dean Situ over the past few years. Finally, he nodded. "Alright, I'll make an exception for you. It would be best if you get into the academy, but if you don't, hurry up and come back to class." "Thank you, Dean Gongsun. I knew you were more open-minded than that Dean Situ. Don't worry, I'll definitely get into the academy. I'll do my best for you," Yun Chujio said with twinkling eyes. Dean Gongsun tried his best to be serious, but the corners of his mouth couldn't help curling up. Apparently, he was very happy to hear Yun Chujio say that he was better than Dean Situ. "Director sir, this is the Sky Luo secret realm of Qi Ling gave me. My alchemy level is limited. Keep it will be wasted, or give you. You refine the pills, give me a few I will be satisfied," Yun Chujio said and handed Dean Gongsun a big wooden box. Dean Gongsun took it and opened it. He was immediately stunned. The wooden box was filled with heaven-rank spirit herbs, and there were as many as 8 of them. Dean Gongsun's hands began to tremble. It must be known that 8 heaven-rank spirit herbs were worth at least 1 billion high-grade spirit stones, and even if one had the money, one might not be able to buy them. Dean Gongsun was about to refuse. Yun Chujio said with a distressed face, "Dean, you can't refuse me. My spiritual power is low, and am always on tenterhooks with these things. It's simply a crime to have a treasure. Please do me a favor and accept this hot potato." Dean Gongsun naturally knew that Yun Chujio was just making excuses, but he couldn't bear to part with these spiritual herbs, so he was very conflicted. Yun Chujio giggled. She said with a cheeky smile, "Dean, if you feel bad, then let Jinji and Shui Wuji go with me to participate in the Primordial Chaos Sex entrance test. I'm timid, so I'm a little afraid to go alone." Dean Gongsun. He had been tricked. He had fallen into Yun Chujio's trap. This little girl had lured him into a trap step by step. This little girl had probably planned to get 3 spots from the start. However, she had only mentioned herself in the beginning. After he had agreed, she had used high-grade spirit herbs as bait to force him to agree to let Jinji and Shui Wuji go with her. Dean Gongsun sighed in his heart. He still could not escape the word greed. However, Yun Chujio and the other 2 were not ordinary people. Sooner or later, they would soar to the sky. It was not a big deal to owe them a favor. Dean Gongsun's face was stern. He reprimanded Yun Chujio indifferently and said, "Forget it. Shui Wuji and Jinji have contributed a lot this time. Let them go with you." After Yun Chujio thanked him profusely, she left Dean Gongsun's courtyard. This guy couldn't wait to find Shui Wuji and Jinji and tell them everything. Shui Wuji and Jinji were naturally very happy. The 3 of them chatted and laughed. Jinji said, "Little Jio, it's going to be a month's holiday soon. What are you going to do?" Yun Chujio touched her nose. "I have enemies all over the world now. I'm really afraid that I'll be hunted down once I leave Tianluo City. Otherwise, let's cultivate in the academy. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time." Shui Wuji and Jinji looked at Yun Chujio speechlessly. She was right. This guy's ability to attract aggro was truly rare in this world. Lu Shi, Gu Shi, Yi Xinwan, along with the Lu and Fan families, as well as the Divine Devil Hall, this guy's enemies could be counted on one hand. The 3 of them discussed and decided to stay in the Xingtian Academy to cultivate. In any case, a month's time would pass very quickly. Unexpectedly, the plan didn't change as quickly. Just as Yun Chujio was about to obediently spend her holiday in the Xingtian Academy, Dean Gongsun found her and said, "Due to the importance of what happened in the Tianluo mystic realm, the Sky-Bearing Alliance has gathered all the major powers in the immortal Yuan continent, including the Hun Yuan sect and the Killing Yuan sect, to discuss the Divine Devil Hall's matters in the Rising Sky City. As you have dealt with the Divine Devil Hall before, and you are also aware of the Divine Devil Hall's matters in the Azure Mystic Continent and the Tian Yuan Continent. Therefore, I request that you participate as well. Go back and pack up. Tomorrow, you will rush to the Rising Sky City with me." Yun Chujio naturally agreed. What a joke. If she didn't agree, wouldn't she be looking for trouble? Besides, it was a good thing to meet all the big shots. Maybe the sect master of the Primordial Chaos sect would be kind enough to let her enter the sect directly. This fellow was daydreaming, seducing Shui Wuji and Jinji to go shopping together. This fellow first bought a lot of chili noodles, and then bought a lot of pots and buckets. He even bought a few large vats. Jinji was very puzzled. "Little Jio, I can understand why you bought so many pots and buckets. Why did you buy so many of them?" Yun Chujio said with a smile, "Of course it's to pretend to be delicious. Think about it. With so many big shots gathered together, how could there not be food and drinks? Moreover, the food and drinks must be high-end goods. I don't plan to order pots or anything. What will I use to pretend when the time comes?" Jinji, "All right, forget it." She didn't know such a shameless person. Not only did this person buy these things, but he also bought some random things, such as red cloth, rapeseed oil, ropes, and so on. He had almost bought out the other person's grocery store. This person had thought it through. Perhaps he would use something, so it wouldn't be a problem to prepare more. Besides, she had plenty of spirit stones at the moment. To her, spirit stones were just a number, okay? The feeling of acting cool was really great. The next morning, Yun Chujio left Xingtian Academy with Dean Gongsun in high spirits. When they arrived outside Tianluo City, they saw Dean Situ exchanging greetings with Mayor Huang. Besides a few guards, there was also an extremely luxurious flying spirit tool behind the two of them. Yun Chujio guessed with her toes that it must belong to the local tyrant, Mayor Huang. Dean Gongsun nodded slightly at the two of them as a greeting. Just as Dean Gongsun was about to introduce Yun Chujio to Mayor Huang, he heard Yun Chujio say in a crisp voice, "Great-grandfather Huang, I haven't seen you for a few days. Why do you look so much younger? Damn, I'm too embarrassed to call you great-grandfather. Calling you great-grandfather makes me feel a little old." Dean Gongsun and Dean Situ almost sat on the ground. What was this? When did this Yun Chujio become Mayor Huang's granddaughter? Wasn't she from the Yi family? Could it be that the Yi family's great-grandfather and Mayor Huang were brothers? But they also had different surnames. Also, Mayor Huang's old face looked older than them. How could he be young? Little girl, is there something wrong with your eyes? Is it really good for you to suck up so blatantly? Mayor Huang was also stunned when he heard Yun Chujio's words. Then he laughed out loud. "You little girl, you sure know how to talk. Don't you know that I feel much younger after looking in the mirror these past 2 days?" Dean Gongsun and Dean Duanmu nearly vomited. "Pooey, your old face is like the bark of an old elm tree, and you look much younger? Shameless." Everyone exchanged some pleasantries before boarding the flying spirit tool. Tianluo City was hundreds of thousands of miles away from Rising Sky City, and it would take at least 10 days to travel there. That was why Dean Gongsun and the others would board the same flying spirit tool. This was also to help each other out. After all, the superposition of the three forces would be even stronger. Yun Chujio was very tactful. After boarding the flying spirit tool, she tried to play nice for a while before returning to her room to avoid being disliked. The journey was very smooth and there were no accidents. 10 days later, the flying spirit tool arrived outside of the city of Rising Sky City. After Yun Chujio got off the flying spirit tool, she was really shocked by the majestic atmosphere of Rising Sky City. If Tianluo City was the size of a soybean, Rising Sky City could be called an apple. The city walls were tall, and the city gates were simple and sturdy. The words, "Rising Sky City," written on the board made people feel as if they were soaring into the sky. Yun Chujio overturned her previous evaluation of the Sky-Bearing Alliance. It seemed that the Sky-Bearing Alliance was not just a show. Since they could build such a city, their strength could not be underestimated. The city gates of Rising Sky City were wide open. Although there were guards on duty, they would not check on pedestrians. This kind of situation showed that the Sky-Bearing Alliance was very confident in their strength. They believed that no one would dare to mess around in Rising Sky City. Beside the guards stood a middle-aged man dressed in Sky-Bearing Alliance attire. From the looks of it, he should be here to welcome the guests. As expected, when that person saw Yun Chujio and the others coming over, he greeted them with great hospitality. "Mayor Huang, Dean Gongsun, Dean Situ, the three of you have come from afar. Thank you for your hard work." Yun Chujio, this fellow, was slightly unhappy in her heart. Could it be that she had not seen such a big living person? Even if you didn't know her, it was still considered polite to at least give her a nod. She was just being snobbish. Yun Chujio was good at reading people's expressions. She could tell that this person was not trying to please Dean Gongsun and Dean Situ. He was trying to please Mayor Huang. Mayor Huang didn't seem to buy it. He just replied indifferently and asked, "Liao Wei, where are our accommodations arranged?" Liao Wei didn't seem to notice Mayor Huang's indifference to him. He continued to say obsequiously, "The three of you are arranged to stay in the Earth-class guest house. There will be people there to receive you." Mayor Huang nodded and then led everyone into the Rising Sky City. Liao Wei saw that Yun Chujio and the others had gone far away, so he took out a voice transmission talisman. Master, Huang Yichen has arrived. It was unknown what was said on the other side, but Liao Wei's gloomy and cold expression flashed across his face. Then, he continued to greet the guests with a smile on his face. Mayor Huang introduced the guests as he walked. Yun Chujio felt that her eyes were not enough. There was always someone better than her. There was always someone better. The prosperity of this rising sky city was simply beyond her imagination. However, it was also true. Just like how the Eastern continent and the Western continent were worlds apart, the area occupied by the super-aristocratic families and super-sects was naturally more prosperous than the area around Tianluo City. Even the spiritual energy was much denser. Yun Chujio glanced around casually. There were many people on the streets that she couldn't see through. This meant that these people were at least at the spiritual void realm or above. When Dean Gongsun disembarked from the spaceship, he specially instructed Yun Chujio, this rising sky city isn't like the Heaven Punisher Academy. When the time comes, you must not provoke any trouble. Your Yi family is high and mighty in our place. In Rising Sky City, you might not even be considered a second-rate force. Any random person on the streets might not be someone you can provoke. If you stir up trouble, I won't be able to protect your little life. Yun Chujio immediately swore an oath that she would definitely be honest and would definitely not stir up trouble. Dean Gongsun nodded, but he was still worried. For some reason, he felt that his right eye was twitching non-stop. He had a feeling that the little girl in front of him would cause trouble. Therefore, although Dean Gongsun said this to Mayor Huang, he kept his eyes on Yun Chujio, afraid that she would cause trouble. Yun Chujio realized that Dean Gongsun was staring at her, and she could not help but be speechless. She might be a little out of line, but she would not cause trouble, right? Did this old man have to go so far? Although Yun Chujio really wanted to take a good stroll, the three old men weren't interested in shopping. They walked through the streets and alleys and soon arrived at the guest quarters of the Sky-Bearing Alliance. The Libra Alliance occupied nearly one-third of the Rising Sky City's area. Just the guest quarters alone had hundreds of them and were divided into 4 areas: Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow. It was obvious that the guest quarters were divided into different levels. The heaven-shaped guest house was the best, followed by the earth-shaped guest house, followed by the black-shaped guest house. The yellow-shaped guest house was basically where the guest guards lived. The Sky-Bearing Alliance's guest houses were all equipped with guards and maids. Therefore, guests were usually only allowed to bring 2 guards in. The rest of the guards would be arranged in the yellow-shaped guest house. Dean Gongsun and Dean Sidu had been here a few times before, so they were very clear about the rules here. Mayor Huang was a local household, so he naturally knew everything. The 3 of them led Yun Chujio to the gate of the house with ease, and a steward immediately came out to welcome them. After some small talk, the steward arranged for the maids to bring the 4 of them to their respective courtyards to settle down. Dean Gongsun was very thoughtful. He specially assigned 2 guards to Yun Chujio to prevent her from being unfamiliar with the place and being restricted. It was obvious that Dean Gongsun had underestimated a certain Jio's thick skin. Even if this fellow was thrown into hell, he would probably be a good friend of King Yama. How could he be restricted? Yun Chujio followed the maid who led the way to a courtyard. Yun Chujio did not show it on the surface, but she was once again unhappy in her heart. Although the courtyard she was in was also considered an earth room, it was obviously the worst among the earth rooms. Yun Chujio had every reason to believe that this courtyard was not even comparable to the Xian room. As for why she thought that way, it was because the contrast was too obvious, okay? The courtyard on her left was an earth room, which was almost 3 times the size of her courtyard. The wall on her right was separated by the Xian room, and the courtyard was also twice the size of her courtyard. Although Yun Chujio was a little unhappy, she thought about it and decided to forget it. If they were to really compete, her status was really not comparable to an earth room. Anyway, she would be going back after staying for a few days. 2 maids and 2 guards stood at the entrance of the courtyard. It seemed that there was nothing wrong with them. The maid who was leading the way said a few polite words and then left. Once the maid left, the attitude of the two maids and the two guards immediately changed. They were so arrogant that they wished they could grow eyes on their backs. The two guards behind Yun Chujio frowned slightly. However, since their master did not say anything, they naturally would not say anything. Yun Chujio tried to persuade herself. Little Jio, the headmaster had said that she should not cause any trouble, so she had to endure it. Yun Chujio tried to persuade herself for a while before looking at the four of them. Normally, the four of them should have gone up to Yun Chujio at this time and reported their names. However, the four of them acted as if nothing had happened. Without waiting for Yun Chujio to speak, they actually entered the courtyard and returned to their own rooms. Yun Chujio's eyes darkened. She said to the two guards behind her, "Xingwen, Xingwu, I don't think anyone is staying in the room next door. You can stay there for now. Don't worry. I won't let you suffer for nothing." The two guards quickly said that they didn't dare. Xingwu said angrily, "Miss Yun, these servants are really too much. Why don't you give the dean a voice transmission talisman and ask him to help you seek justice?" Before Yun Chujio left, not only did she ask Dean Gongsun for a voice transmission talisman, but she also asked Dean Duanmu and Mayor Huang for a voice transmission talisman. Hearing Xingwu's words, Yun Chujio shook her head and said, "It's just a small matter. There's no need to trouble him. Don't provoke them. We'll go back after staying here for a few days." Xingwen was more cautious. He glared at Xingwu. "Miss Yun is right. It's better to be safe than sorry since we're new here." Yun Chujio nodded and let the two of them go to their rooms to rest. She then walked to the main room. The main room was divided into 3 rooms. There was a study room, a living room, and a bedroom. Although the two maids were arrogant, they were not stupid enough to occupy Yun Chujio's main room. Yun Chujio pushed open the bedroom door. The room was clean and tidy. It was probably cleaned all the time. Yun Chujio went to the study and the living room to take a look, and they were also very clean. Yun Chujio could not help but raise her eyebrows. It seemed that the two maids were not stupid. They would not leave any evidence on the surface. After all, whether they were respectful or not was a matter of subjective feelings. It would not be clear when the time came. Yun Chujio washed up briefly and then sat on the bed to read the script. She did not dare to cultivate. If she made a breakthrough here, it would be terrible. Soon it was lunchtime. One of the maids came back with lunch, but she did not give it to Yun Chujio. Instead, the 4 of them gathered together and ate. Yun Chujio was engrossed in reading the script until she was hungry. Only then did she realize that she had not eaten lunch. She walked out of the bedroom and happened to see the 4 servants sitting around the stone table eating lunch. The dishes on the stone table were very sumptuous. The 4 of them ate until the corners of their mouths were dripping with oil. One of the maids, Mingyue, wiped her mouth with a handkerchief when she saw Yun Chujio. She said with a fake smile, "Miss Yun, this matter has caused a ruckus. We thought that you had already eaten lunch. So we took the courage to eat your lunch. You don't have any objections, right?" Yun Chujio smiled brightly. It's okay. If you like it, I'll give you my share in the future." Mingyu's eyes flashed with disdain. She said perfunctorily, "Thank you, Miss Yun." After Mingyue said that, she picked up her chopsticks and continued to eat. Obviously, she was not going to talk to Yun Chujio anymore. Yun Chujio was not angry. She turned around and went into the bedroom. Mingyue spat in the direction of the bedroom. This Yun Chujio is quite self-aware. I think it's true. Even the legitimate daughter of the Yi family is not qualified to live in an underground room. She, the daughter of a step-in-law, was only invited to the party because of dog shit and luck. Another serving girl, Ming Qiao, echoed, "That's right. I don't know what the higher-ups are thinking, but they actually invited a trash like her over. The 6th level of the Ling Xian realm is simply too laughable. I heard that Yun Chujio's mother was expelled from the Yi family. I don't know how they succeeded her. I heard that Yun Chujio claimed to be the favored child of the Tiandao. She deliberately created a few incidents. Those people over there haven't seen the world before, yet they take her seriously. What a joke. Shifeng, one of the guards, sneered. Yun Chujio has been arranged to stay in this courtyard. This means that her status isn't even comparable to the guests in the mysterious room. We should eat and drink. Speaking of which, the food provided to our guests is truly delicious, Shirling, the remaining guard, said as he ate. The four of them were chatting and laughing. Their voices were not low, and it was obvious that they did not care whether Yun Chujio would hear them. Xingwu was furious. Big brother, Miss Yun was a tyrant in Xingtian Academy. Why didn't she say anything when she was being bullied? Those four snobs actually ate Miss Yun's food, and they did not even help us get our food. Are they planning to starve us to death? Miss Yun told us not to cause trouble, so please calm down. Besides, don't we have dry rations? If you are hungry, just eat dry rations, Xingwen said disapprovingly. Xingwu scolded indignantly, damn it. I thought that we would be able to eat well here, but I didn't expect that we wouldn't even be able to get food. I think Miss Yun is just a hooligan, but she's already cowardly in this rising sky city. Xingwen glared at him fiercely. What do you mean cowardly? You should keep your mouth shut about master's matters. Just stay here obediently. Xingwu grumbled a few more words before he took out a steamed bun and chewed it bitterly. Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes in the room. It seemed that these servants did not know the contents of the meeting. Speaking of which, the matter of the Divine Devil Hall was of great importance. Naturally, they would not leak the news casually. Although Yun Chujio hated these four villains who flattered the higher ones and trampled on the lower ones, she was more concerned about who had arranged for her to be in this courtyard. The person who could arrange the courtyard should at least be a small steward. He must have someone in the upper echelons. What right did she have to offend the people of the Sky-Bearing Alliance? Could it be a trick of the Fan family? She felt that it was unlikely. The Fan family did not need to resort to such a trick at such an important gathering. Yun Chujio thought for a while but couldn't come up with any ideas, so she decided not to think about it. Anyway, if the person behind the scenes wanted to target her, he would reveal himself sooner or later. There was plenty of food in the storage ring. She ate the little and then took a nap. Dean Gongsun and the others were busy receiving guests. This was also the reason why they had arrived early. This was a rare opportunity to expand their social circle, so they naturally wouldn't let it go. Yun Chujio naturally wouldn't be insensible and cause trouble. For 2 days in a row, she filled the room with mushrooms. When the four servants saw that Yun Chujio was weak and easy to bully, they became even more unscrupulous. Not only did they eat Yun Chujio's meals, they didn't even help prepare the tea and water for washing up. Not to mention Xingwu, even Xingwen could not stand it. Why did this Yun Chujio suddenly seem like a different person? Was she really going to swallow her pride? After breakfast on the 3rd day, Yun Chujio sent a voice transmission talisman to Old Master Yi out of courtesy to ask if he had arrived. She wanted to go over and pay her respects. Although Yun Chujio and Old Master Yi had developed a grudge after the matter between Yi Xinwan and her mother, Yun Chujio naturally would not let others find fault with what she was supposed to do on the surface. Old Master Yi replied that he had already checked into room number 80, indicating that Yun Chujio could go over and pay her respects. Yun Chujio tidied up briefly and left the bedroom. She said to the four people who were eating snacks and chatting in the courtyard, I want to go to room number 80 to pay my respects to my great-grandfather. Which one of you will accompany me? Mingyue threw the melon seeds in her hand onto the plate. How troublesome. Just stay here. What are you going out for? Let's go. Yun Chujio's expression was as usual, as if she did not see or hear Mingyu's disrespect. She did not bring Xingwen and Xingwu either. She only brought Mingyue out of the courtyard. After leaving the courtyard, Mingyu's expression became a little more restrained. She was probably afraid that others would see her. However, she led the way at a very fast pace. She wanted Yun Chujio to make a fool of herself. She felt that Yun Chujio's spiritual power was only at the 6th level of the Lingxian realm, and she was already at the 8th level of the Lingxian realm. If Yun Chujio could not keep up with her pace, she could only jog. It would be so embarrassing. Unexpectedly, even though she was already walking very fast, Yun Chujio still walked unhurriedly on her right side. Moreover, her expression was normal, and she did not seem to be panting at all. Mingyue was so angry that she gritted her teeth, but she did not dare to say anything outside. Because Mingyue was leading the way, the two of them quickly arrived at room number 80. The servant in room number 80 respectfully invited Yun Chujio in and then led her into the study room. Yun Chujio could not help but mock herself in her heart. Look, the servants here were the normal servants. The 4 people in her courtyard were simply the masters. Therefore, strength was the most important principle. She had to improve her strength as soon as possible. Yun Chujio entered the study and bowed respectfully to old Master Yi. Sit. Previously, you didn't explain too clearly in the voice transmission talisman. What exactly is going on with the Divine Devil Hall? Yun Chujio had briefly told old Master Yi about the matter of the Tianluo mystic realm before. After all, old Master Yi was the big tree that she had her back now, so she had to report what needed to be reported. Yun Chujio told great-grandfather Yi in detail about the matters of the Divine Devil Hall. Of course, some things that should not be said had been processed by this fellow. Great-grandfather Yi's expression turned grave after listening to her. No wonder even the Primordial Chaos sect and the Murderous Origins sect had participated in this meeting. The matters of the Divine Devil Hall concerned the life and death of the immortal Yuan continent, so they could not be careless. Great-grandfather Yi glanced at Yun Chujio, who was munching on snacks. This great-granddaughter of his could always be associated with some strange things. He did not know whether she would soar to the sky or fall to the dust in the future. Yun Chujio cursed Mingyue and the others in her heart as she ate the pastries. Damn it, she did not expect the pastries in this guest house to be so delicious. From this, she deduced that the taste of the food must be even better. They had all eaten them. Little bitches, just you wait. Great-grandfather Yi saw the expression on Yun Chujio's face and thought that she did not like the taste of the pastries. He frowned and said, "Little Gio, if the pastries do not taste good, don't eat them. Why force yourself? I quite like the pastries. It's just that when I think about the matters of the Divine Devil Hall, I'm a little annoyed. The matters of the Divine Devil Hall will naturally be handled by adults like us. You can just focus on cultivating. After this gathering ends, you must cultivate properly when you go back. Otherwise, the Divine Devil Hall will find trouble with you," old Master Yi said solemnly. Yun Chujio nodded, indicating that she would definitely cultivate properly and improve every day. Old Master Yi reminded her a few more times and picked up the teacup. The meaning was obvious. It was time for Yun Chujio to leave. What old Master Yi did not expect was that his hand holding the teacup was sore. Yun Chujio acted as if she did not understand what he meant by serving tea to send her off. She continued to sit there and munch on pastries. Cough cough. Little Gio, since there's nothing else, you can go back first. Old Master Yi was really at a loss and could only chase her away. Great-grandfather, it's been a long time since I've accompanied you for dinner. It's almost time for lunch, so I'll just stay here and eat with you, Yun Chujio said with a smile. Great-grandfather Yi looked at Yun Chujio speechlessly. He had just had breakfast, all right? It was still far from lunchtime. Seeing that a certain Gio was staying here, Great-grandfather Yi could only say to her, "Since that's the case, you can read here by yourself. I'll go meditate and cultivate." "All right. I'll call you over when we're having lunch." Yun Chujio's reply was crisp and clear. The corners of Great-grandfather Yi's eyes twitched. What was wrong with this little girl? Great-grandfather Yi shook his head helplessly and went back to his bedroom to meditate. Yun Chujio crossed her legs and took out her phone book to read. The reason why this fellow did not leave was obvious. Of course, it was to freeload lunch. She did not want to deal with Mingyue and the other 3 right now, so she could only freeload lunch here. This fellow counted with his fingers and finally endured until noon. Seeing that the maid had brought lunch, this fellow could not wait to invite old Master Yi to the living room. Yun Chujio looked at the sumptuous food on the table and almost drooled. Old Master Yi glanced at her and coughed. Little Jio, behave yourself outside. A girl should behave like a girl. Yun Chujio said cheekily, there are no outsiders here. You are my closest and dearest person. When great-grandfather Yi heard Yun Chujio say this, the little grudge in his heart disappeared a little. He scolded Yun Chujio jokingly and helped her to pick up a few pieces of meat. You little gluttonous cat, eat. Yun Chujio was stunned. Yun Xiaotian often said this to her. When she thought of Yun Xiaoan, her eyes turned red and tears almost fell. Old Master Yi misunderstood. He thought that Yun Chujio was touched, but in his heart he couldn't bear it. She was just a child, but he was a little heartless. Forget it. As long as she didn't cause trouble again, he could help her find a good family in the future. With the protection of the Yi family, she would have something to rely on in the future. Yun Chujio calmed her emotions and picked up the meat in the bowl and put it into her mouth. Unexpectedly, before she could chew, a suction force came from her dantian, and the meat was absorbed by the guai chow. Yun Chujio could not help but be shocked. Could it be that the meat was poisonous? Yun Chujio quickly used her spiritual sense to ask about the guai chow. The leaves of the guai chow swayed nonstop, obviously very excited. It was really poisonous. Yun Chujio picked up a few more dishes without batting an eyelid. They were all poisonous, except for the spiritual rice. Yun Chujio did not tell Old Master Yi that there was poison in the dishes. Firstly, she could not explain how she found out that there was poison in the dishes. Secondly, this poison probably did not only exist in this meal. It was too late to say it now. Thirdly, she did not want to alert the enemy. Old Master Yi's status here could only be considered second-rate. His words did not carry much weight. If he claimed that the dishes were poisonous, he might be blamed by others. It was better to take a look first. Anyway, this medicine seemed to be slow-acting, and it would not kill anyone in a short while. Yun Chujio thought of Mingyue and the other three, and she could not help but laugh in her heart. It was really retribution. If those four knew that the food was poisonous, their intestines would probably turn green with regret, right? After Yun Chujio had a free meal, she said her goodbyes slowly and left Old Master Yi's guest house. On the way back, Mingyu's expression was very ugly. Clearly, she was complaining that Yun Chujio had stayed too long. Yun Chujio thought to herself, jump around. Seeing that you willingly took the poison, I won't teach you a lesson for now. After the two of them returned to the guest house, Mingyue grumbled quite a bit, almost pointing at Yun Chujio's nose and cursing. Yun Chujio acted as if she didn't hear anything and slowly entered the bedroom. Yun Chujio spent a lot of effort to communicate with Guai Chao before she understood. The poison in the vegetables only had one effect, and that was to make one's spiritual power disappear. This poison was very strange. It hid for a very long time, and it would take at least 7 days for it to take effect. Moreover, once it took effect, the lost spiritual power would not be able to be recovered. Yun Chujio counted with her fingers. Even if they were the first batch to arrive, they would still leave the Rising Sky City 7 days later. Could it be that they wanted to make a move on the way? Was this matter the work of the Sky-Bearing Alliance or the Divine Devil Hall? No matter which faction did it, this plan was really successful. The people who came this time were all the leaders of the Immortal Essence Continent. As long as these people were killed, all the major factions would be greatly weakened. The mastermind would naturally be more than happy. Yun Chujio wasted a lot of effort to ask about the formula of the Guai Chao's antidote. She never expected that although this poison was insidious, the antidote was very out of Yun Chujio's expectations. The antidote was simple, but it was also not simple. The antidote to this poison did not need to be refined. It only needed the juice of the coral fruit to detoxify the poison. However, there was a problem. The coral fruit was only a level 1 spirit fruit. Only low-level continents could grow it. In a high-level continent like the immortal Yuan continent, even if one scraped the land 3 times, there would not be such a low-level spirit fruit. Yun Chujio silently glanced at her storage ring. She remembered that she had stored a lot of coral fruits in her storage ring. Later, Di Biming gave her a lot of delicious spiritual fruits. She despised the coral fruits because they weren't delicious. Therefore, those coral fruits were still there. Moreover, even if she didn't have them in her storage ring, there were plenty in the Great Void Mirror. She could have as many as she wanted. Yun Chujio burst into laughter as she thought about it. She sympathized with the mastermind. If she hadn't come, his plan would have been successful without a hitch. Unfortunately, this bad thing of hers had come. She was also helpless. Why was she always forced to be the one to turn the tables? She just wanted to be a quiet foodie. This fellow rolled his eyes. This time was different from the trials within the Xingtian Academy. It wasn't a good thing to be in the limelight too much. It was best to do it quietly like a spring breeze. Sometimes, it wasn't a good thing to shine too brightly. It was better to keep a low profile. Yun Chujio rested her chin on her hand and thought for a while. After she felt that her plan was foolproof, she continued to flip through the storybook. The next day, it was finally the day of the gathering. Everyone left the guest house and headed to the meeting hall of the Sky-Bearing Alliance. Yun Chujio naturally followed Dean Gongsun. Dean Gongsun once again instructed her to be careful with her words and actions when she arrived at the meeting hall and not to act rashly. Old Master Yi also specially came over and instructed her once. He was afraid that Yun Chujio would cause trouble and implicate the Yi family as well. It was rare for Yun Chujio to reflect on herself. Was she really that unreliable? Why did everyone think that she would cause trouble? She was clearly your savior, boys. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.